All right, everybody, bundle up because we are diving headfirst into this crazy Minnesota winter weather. We've got a major snowstorm on the way, and we're going to break it all down for you today. We've got some great info from NPR News, so you'll know exactly what to expect. Maybe you'll even learn a thing or two and impress your friends with some cool weather trivia.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. You know, it's really fascinating. We have a winter storm warning in effect for a lot of central and southeast Minnesota. So that includes the Twin Cities, but the heaviest snow, well, it's not expected to hit right here.
That is interesting. So where's all this snow going to go?
Okay, the heaviest snow is actually predicted further north, across central Minnesota and along the North Shore. They could see over a foot.
Wow, over a foot of snow. That is a lot of snow. What's causing all that heavier snowfall up north? Is that normal?
It really comes down to the track of the storm system. Meteorologists call it a clipper system. It's this fast-moving, low-pressure system that usually comes from Canada and sweeps across the northern U.S. They can bring these bursts of heavy snow and cold temperatures, and this one's headed right for central and northern Minnesota.
So these clipper systems tend to favor the northern parts of the state? I guess that explains why we sometimes feel like we get off easy in the Twin Cities while our neighbors up north are dealing with blizzards.
Exactly. Now, we might not see a foot of snow down here in the metro area, but we're still looking at a pretty significant accumulation. And the timing of this storm is something to watch out for.
I bet I'm already dreading that morning commute. So when exactly can we expect this heavy snowfall?
The heaviest snow is expected during the morning hours on Thursday. If you have an early commute, you'll definitely want to plan ahead. Maybe even work from home if you can.
That's good advice. I'll set my alarm extra early and stock up on coffee. So how long will this snow last? Are we talking about a full day of this?
There's good news there. The snowfall is expected to taper off by Thursday evening. So it'll be a pretty intense burst of snow, but it should be relatively short-lived.
Phew, okay, that's good to hear. Well, I know it's Minnesota and we should always expect cold weather, but how cold are we talking?
During the day, on Thursday, temperatures will hover in the 20s and teens, which should be good enough for the road salt to work, at least in the Twin Cities. But here's where things get interesting.
I can sense a but coming. What should we be bracing ourselves for?
Well, those relatively mild temperatures won't last. Overnight, Thursday into Friday morning, we're going to see temperatures really plummet. We could see sub-zero readings up north, and even down here in the southeast, we'll be dipping into the teens.
Brr, that sounds brutal. I'm already feeling cold just thinking about it. I guess this is where those extra layers and the space heater come in handy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This temperature drop is serious. Take extra precautions, especially if you're planning any outdoor activities. And if you have any sensitive plants that need protection, you might want to think about that too. And, this dramatic temperature shift could have some longer-term consequences as well. But we can talk about that a little bit later.
I know, I'm really curious. But for now, let's just focus on getting through this snowstorm. So we have heavy snow Thursday morning, tapering off by the evening, and then a big temperature drop overnight. What about the rest of the week? Any chance of a break from the cold and snow?
Well, there's a little bit of good news in the forecast. Friday and Saturday are looking pretty good, actually. It'll be chilly but sunny with highs in the teens. It'll be a nice little break after all that snow on Thursday.
Ooh, a winter wonderland weekend. Perfect for some cozy time inside or maybe some snowshoeing or cross-country skiing. But I'm still curious about that temperature drop you talked about and those potential long-term consequences. What should we be thinking about as the snow starts to melt?
That's a great question. It's something we should all be thinking about, especially here in Minnesota, where we always have these crazy temperature swings. When we get a ton of snow all at once like this, and then the temperature just plummets. Well, the ground freezes solid, and then when it warms up and all that snow melts, the water has nowhere to go.
Oh, I see. So instead of soaking into the ground, it all just runs off and could cause flooding.
Exactly. And this can be a big problem in areas with lots of paved surfaces or places where the ground is already soaked from rain. All that water has to go somewhere, and it usually ends up in rivers, streams, and basements.
Wow, that's a really good point. It's easy to just focus on the snowstorm itself. We need to be thinking about what happens after the storm, too. Is there anything we can do to prevent flooding? Or do we just have to hope for a slow melt?
Hoping for a slow melt is definitely a good start. But there are some things we can do to prepare. Making sure your gutters and downspouts are clear is important, so the melted snow can actually drain away from your house. And if you live in an area that floods easily, you might want to think about getting some sandbags or other flood protection.
Those are all great tips. I think it shows how important it is to really pay attention to the forecast. We need to know what's coming and understand what could happen. It's not just about knowing whether to grab a coat or an umbrella. It's about being aware of how the weather can impact us in ways we don't always expect.
I agree. We need to think like weather detectives, looking for clues and putting the pieces together. And since these clipper systems seem to be happening more often, it's even more important to be informed and prepared.
Okay, so we have this big snowstorm on Thursday, followed by a super cold weekend, and then maybe some flooding as things warm up. Is there anything else we should be watching out for?
Well, there is one more thing in the forecast. It looks like we might get another clipper system late Sunday into early Monday.
Oh no, are you serious? Another one. Will this one be as bad as the one on Thursday?
This one looks like it will bring less snow than Thursday's storm, but it's still something to watch out for, especially with all the snow we'll already have on the ground.
Oh, I was hoping for a break from all the snow, but at least we'll be prepared. So to recap, lots of snow, frigid temperatures, possible flooding, and another snow system on the way. Is there any good news at all? I'm ready for some sunshine and warm weather.
There is a little bit of hope. Next week, it looks like we'll have above freezing temperatures in southern Minnesota.
Okay, that is good news. So this snow won't last forever. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. Just a little reminder that spring is always coming, even when it's the middle of winter. But before we get too excited, let's make sure we're ready for all this wild weather this week.
You're right. So what do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to know?
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing is this week's snowstorm is just the start. We got to be thinking about potential flooding with all the temperature changes coming up and all that snow melting. And those super low temps are nothing to mess around with. Bundle up out there, everyone.
You got it. And don't forget that second clipper sister coming early next week. It might not be as much snow, but it's still going to add to what's already on the ground. So be ready for things to maybe get a little messy at the start of next week.
All right, so just to recap for everyone, get ready for a big blast of snow Thursday morning, especially you folks north of the Twin Cities. You might want to plan for some travel delays and stock up on the hot cocoa. But hey, at least the weekend looks pretty good. Chilly, but sunny. Perfect for enjoying that fresh snow. Just be sure to bundle up because those overnight lows are going to be brutal. And keep an eye out for that second snow system coming in early next week. You know, this is a good reminder that we need to be flexible and ready for anything here in Minnesota. Mother Nature keeps us on our toes. But here's something to think about. With these wild temperature swings going up and down, how might that affect the spring thaw? And could it lead to even worse flooding later on? It's a tough question with lots of things to consider, but it's something to keep in mind.
Definitely a good point. It's like we're getting a little preview of what we might be dealing with in a few months. And hey, if you ever need a quick and informative breakdown on any topic, you know where to find us. Until next time, stay curious, stay warm, and stay tuned for more deep dives.